Hello, this is Harry Paden back for another episode of the Paden Perspective. This is episode number 5 of my first season. Today's subject, very relevant in my opinion, and it's something that's being discussed on a worldwide stage again. And that is the subject of gender inequality. So we'll get right on that subject, and as I said, it is being discussed on a worldwide basis thanks to the women's soccer team. They won the championship again, so much at this point, better than the men's team, who right now haven't won the same amount of championships as the women. And they have pointed out the inequality in pay between the women and the men of the same sport. In other words, they get paid less than their male counterparts. And again, as I said, these women are proven champions. They won 4 years ago, and they won this year. And that to me says winner, sprinkles, and all the good things. But if you look at how much the top women soccer players get paid and the top men, it's not equal. The men make more. Now the question is, why do the men make more? They're certainly not better in their respective division because they're not winning championships. So the subject of gender equality is something that, in my opinion, I think should be addressed. But before I begin, I'd like to give some thank yous. I'm a big thank you type person. There is a young lady. She gave me this dynamic, beautiful African print that we know of as dashikis. Her name is Jarena Slocum. I consider her my African daughter. She is from the continent of Africa, and if I'm not mistaken, Liberia. How she became my African daughter, her son and my grandson played for the same basketball team while they were in school, several different seasons. And we would go to the games and sit together and root for our children. And you know how it is, if I'm around my daughter's friends, my grandchildren's friends and parents, I automatically, interact with them. And because of my seniorness, my grayness, I'm a little older, she refers to me as Pops. So she's my daughter, and I love her. And this is so beautiful. It makes me feel so regal, so African. I am conceited. Say that before I say this. And I know I look good in it. Thank you, Jarena. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much. I will cherish it forever. Now, getting on the subject of gender equality. Oh, I got one more thank you. Thanks to all those who have responded in kind, the emails, the Facebook posts, the various things that you've done. This was something that I took on the task. I didn't know if I wanted to do it. It is time-consuming research. I research things, endlessly. But I love it now. I love it because it's a challenge and because I've started to get reaction, good and bad. The bad I'll talk to at some point. But I know that there are people out there listening saying, wow, how is this guy coming up with this information and putting this information out here? They're not supposed to know these things. I know these things, so I'm spreading it out. Enough of that. Now let's get on to gender inequality. There is a document, great document, that's out there, and the framers, the persons who wrote this document, said these words: we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, men, are created equal. It doesn't include women, and I guess they wanted to be true to themselves. They considered the men equal, and the men that they were talking about were men like them. If they looked in the mirror, the men looked like them. They act like them. They were them. So it didn't include women, because back then, and to many nowadays, they're considered second-class citizens. They cook, clean, sew, do those things that women do, procreate, those kind of things. Good mother, good wife. But men, we're the rulers, we're the men. So the women, they weren't thought of in that document. And how can I say that? Well, let's look at how women are treated. In the workplace, there's a disparity. The disparity in the workplace takes place with the salaries. And in the average workplace, women, for the same job that a man would do, for every $1, a woman gets paid 76 cents. Same job. So in other words, if you were an accountant and you were in the same job, starting at the same time or getting a starting pay, as a woman, you would, on average, make 76 cents, and a guy would make $1. In other words, you would make 24 cents less than the guy. So when they offered you the job, they would take into consideration that you're a woman and you would be paid 24 cents less on $1 than men. That doesn't seem right. But that's the American way across the board. There are some companies, many companies, that may not take place, but the information that I get this information from is the U.S., United States Bureau of the Census. I gotta stop buying store-bought teeth. I have store-bought teeth, beautiful teeth. But the census says that. Now, let's look at some other things. There are 10 million single mothers, and there are about 26% of the parent-child situations consist of single mothers. So why should a single mother make less than the male counterpart? After all, they're taking care of a child or children. But this comes from the U.S. Census Bureau. People, I always challenge you, do your homework. Because I try to do mine. Let me stop lying. I do mine. And see if I'm telling something. This is the U.S. Bureau of Census information. That's why I look at it. I don't want to be wrong. There are about 30.7 million households, about 3 in 10 households that are maintained by women without a husband. Why shouldn't that woman make as much as her male counterpart? Okay, something else is important. It doesn't necessarily deal with the salary, but it just shows how women are doing what men are doing. Some men don't do it. Some men get elected to high offices and never served a day in the military. Now, I never served a day in the military. I was scared. Didn't want to go. Now, I'm honest enough to say that I don't want to go and be fighting and killing people. I've never shot a gun in my life. I've had a lot of fights. So if you want to send me over and we fight, I'll go. But guns and bombs and stuff, I wasn't feeling it. But luckily, I never had to go. When I went, when it was my time, we had draft numbers, and I was very high up. They never called me to duty. So I didn't punk out. I probably would have went reluctantly. But some people, they get high up there and they get military deferences, bone spurs and stuff like that. But let's talk about women right now. 1.6 million women are military veterans. What that means is they've already served. They've served, fought for our country, for our freedom. 1.6 million. Not me, but they did. And 164,000 are currently serving. 164,000 are currently serving in the armed forces, various armed forces. And I won't do it now, but let's talk about that subject, because it's a disgrace how they get treated over there. There's many allegations of sexual abuse and all the other things. Why are men thinking that they can abuse our women? That's ungodly, in my opinion. But we're on the subject of gender inequality. So I pointed out that women in this great nation are not earning the kind of money that they should be earning, because men who are in control think of women as less than. Now, let's get on the subject. Just as I had spoke on it, the subject, there are some people that may say, wait a minute, why are you talking about America? Because I can. It's in the Constitution. As I said, the Constitution is a great document. I was always so amazed and said these men were brilliant when they put it together in spite of their inadequacies as human beings. It was a brilliant document, it still is. But did you know that the framers of the Constitution, these brilliant men, stole or copied, depending upon how you look at it, the document, the framework of it, from the Native American tribes called the Iroquois, Iroquois, Constitution. This great Native American band of men and women, when the colonizers came over, they already had great nations, which were, various Indian type tribes, and they weren't living in little teepees and, eating mud and all that kind of stuff that we see on these cowboy type movies. They were rulers of great nations and were doing great things, and they, in order to try to get along so that they wouldn't have many wars, as many countries and many places have when you have different people of different ilks and different, lineages, they framed this together so that they could live together. The framers of our Constitution liked it and said, oh, this is great. We just got away from that Great Britain place, and we want to do something to make all of us equal, just like you. And they took the idea from them. Look it up. The Iroquois. Iroquois. Paden speaks the truth. So as we copied, my tongue always gets loose. As we copy this document, it is a great document. But the men who put it together, at the time they put it together, they owned slaves. They treated their women like second-class citizens, and now they are still treating women as second-class citizens. I forgot to turn my phone off. That's not my cell phone. That's my business phone. But it'll ring, and you'll have to excuse it. But let's talk about women again. Why should women be treated equally? Well, 61% of the women who are U.S. citizens voted in the last presidential election, as compared to 58% of the men. 61% of the women voted, 58% of the men. Education-wise, 33% of women between the ages of 25 to 34 have completed college. Men, only 29%. You see where I'm going with this? Women have met the the challenge. They're working harder than the men. And they should be given what is due to them. If you go to college, if you make the effort, and you do the things that men do, there is no physiological reason. I've known women truck drivers, backhoe drivers, those big machines. I've known women of all different segments as we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the trip to the moon. Most of us were amazed that we found out about the women's role. They were very analytical. They put numbers together, things that I don't like to do, to make sure that these spaceships will go up, and come down safely. Women were behind that. We wouldn't have been successful. But that has just come out over the last few years. Look, most of us didn't even know that. And you know what? I bet those women were being paid less than 74 cents on a dollar for their efforts. So it's time that we do better. Now, I'm very fortunate. Many of us are, like myself. I was raised by a strong woman, my mother. My mother passed on when I was 16, but prior to her passing on, she taught me how to cook, clean, sew, go to the laundry, be thoroughly independent of anyone. Take care of yourself. Before you can take care of anyone else, you have to be able to take care of yourself. And she gave me all those values, and even more importantly, she gave me the value of caring for others and treating others the way you would want them to treat you. Why is that important? Men, don't you have daughters? Don't you have granddaughters? Don't you have mothers, sisters, aunts? Why would you want to mistreat them simply because they're female? God created females. You did. It's time that we do better. And the change has to come from within. Power is never acquiesced. Power is never just given. So women, your fight for equality, the numbers are showing that it's starting to work. I am a proponent. I have 4 very strong daughters. I have granddaughters. I have great-granddaughters. And I want this world, for the effort that they put out, I want them to be equal, if not superior, to any man. And when they are, they get paid accordingly. So I have no reason to want gender inequality, but it still exists today. Now, speaking of my 4 daughters, I am so proud of them. They're so dynamic, they're so strong. I love them. But here's a little thing that I noticed is that back when they were young, I was protective, and I've seen guys, and they said, man, you look real protective of your daughter. I was scared to talk to you, and I said, yeah, see, that worked. You were supposed to be scared to talk to my daughters. That's how men, roll. But nowadays, when I'm with my daughters, and let's say I'm leaving their house or I'm leaving church and we're together, they'll walk me to my car to make sure that I get in my car safely. And I think I'm going to say cute, but it's so cool, like they're protecting me. Now, if something were to go down, I'd probably push them out the way and try to be the strong guy, old strong guy that I am. But they probably push me right straight back. Get out the way, old man, I'm protecting you. But I love that about my daughters because they are strong women. So when I talk about this, I have a vested interest, and my vested interest is my daughters, granddaughters, great-granddaughters, and the women in general of the world. Jarena, especially. Great woman, powerful woman. So I have a vested interest in all of these subjects. So it's time that we change things. Men, come on, we can do better. Don't be challenged by women. Don't be challenged by women. They are our greatest asset. Time is filled with swift transition. See, I went biblical. That wasn't biblical, but that was a gospel song. I told y'all when I started this thing, I am very different. I believe I was dropped on my head But I'm still pretty smart. I'm still pretty bright. I'm just a little crazy. And every once in a while I tell a joke that's only funny to me. But I hope that you enjoyed this segment. And I will continue to bring you information that America doesn't want you to know. And America, you keep saying, and I heard some people say it, they've said it, and even orange people say it, go back to where you come from. Well, I'm from Africa. I'm not born in Africa. I was born in America, Harlem, New York, and I'm so proud of that. But I am black, thick lips, broad nose, dark, chocolate dark. I am African through and through. But I am going to Africa. I'm going to visit, but I'm not going to live. Not because Africa is not a great place to live. You guys know that because you're going over there and milking Africa of all of her resources. Africa's a continent, y'all, not a country. Just had to throw that in. So here's the deal. I will go back to Africa to live, the birthplace of my beautiful people. When you go back to Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, and the other colonial places that came and took land because your land was not doing what you wanted to do. You were growing too big for your land and you needed more resources, so you came to our land thinking that you were going to India, and you came and found America. I thank God for that. Circumstances were different, then that means that I wouldn't be here. So in everything bad, there's something good. But I will go back to Africa when you show me your ticket and your suitcases, when you go back to live in your countries, because you're immigrants here too. Native Americans will certainly have that recorded in their history books, and I certainly will put out information about the great Native Americans which were not treated too kindly by many of the people who now say, this is America. How could you talk about America? I can talk about America because it's in the Constitution. God bless you all. See you next time. This is the Paden perspective, and I am Harry Paden. To God be the glory.